Okay, picture this. It's September 12th, 1683. Outside the walls of Vienna, a brutal, 2-month-long siege is about to hit its terrifying climax. All of a sudden, an officer from the elite Janissary Corps bursts into the tent of the Ottoman commander, and he is panic-stricken, pointing up towards the hills. And the news he brings? Well, it's the kind of news the Grand Vizier, Kara Mustafa, really does not want to hear. Because up on those hills, history is about to be rewritten.
Just try to imagine the sight. Looking up, you see 4 massive columns of cavalry, spread out across the high ground overlooking the sprawling Ottoman camp. We're talking 18,000 horsemen in total. It's an almost unbelievable force. And at their head, the Polish King John III Sobieski, his sword raised, about to give the order for what will become the largest cavalry charge in recorded history.
I mean, it's an incredible scene, isn't it? A last desperate gamble with absolutely everything on the line. So the question is, how did we get here? How did the entire future of Europe come to rest on the tips of thousands of Polish lances thundering down a hillside toward a city on the brink? To really get it, we need to zoom out.
You see, this moment didn't just happen out of nowhere. It was the boiling point of a power struggle that had been going on for centuries. For generations, 2 colossal empires, the expanding Ottoman Empire in the east and the Habsburg monarchy in the west, had been locked in this contest for the soul of a continent. And Vienna? Well, Vienna was the grand prize.
This timeline, it basically charts a collision course that was decades, even centuries in the making. It all kicks into high gear in 1453 when Constantinople falls, and the Ottomans become a true global superpower. They actually tried to take Vienna once before, back in 1529, but failed. For over 100 years after that, things were tense, but the frontier held. That all changed in 1682, when the ambitious Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa convinced the Sultan, let's try again. And so an army of almost unimaginable size began its march.
And the stakes? They could not have been higher. On one side, you've got Sultan Mehmed IV and the Ottomans. They saw themselves as the rightful heirs to the Roman Empire, and their goal was simple: conquer the West. Vienna was the key that would unlock all of Central Europe. And on the other side, you've got Emperor Leopold I and the Habsburgs fighting a desperate battle for survival, not just for their empire, but for what they saw as all of Christendom.
So, in July of 1683, the storm finally breaks. The massive Ottoman army arrives and completely surrounds Vienna. The situation was so bad that Emperor Leopold I, his court, and about 60,000 residents just fled the city, leaving just a skeleton crew behind to face the music. And for the next 2 months, Vienna was a city on the absolute edge of annihilation.
And look, the Ottomans weren't just attacking from the outside. No, they were waging this terrifying war from below. Their elite miners, called sappers, dug this whole web of tunnels right under the city's main defenses. They'd pack them with gunpowder and literally blow the walls apart from the inside out. The defenders, meanwhile, were desperately digging counter-tunnels, just listening for the sound of digging, leading to these brutal close-quarters battles in the pitch black. Meanwhile, up on the surface, things were just as grim. The Ottoman blockade was total. Nothing was getting in or out. No food, no supplies, nothing. The city was being strangled. And day by day, the stockpiles just dwindled away, and this once vibrant capital began the slow, agonizing process of starvation.
And you know what follows starvation, right? Disease. Weakened by hunger, the soldiers and the citizens became easy prey for outbreaks of dysentery and typhus. The grand streets of Vienna turned into a death trap filled with the sick and the dying.
By the time early September rolled around, the city was on its last legs. Think about it. They started with a garrison of 15,000 soldiers. Now, between the fighting and the disease, that number was down to just 5,000 men who could even stand and fight. The walls were crumbling, the people were starving. Vienna was about to fall. But help was on the way. Working behind the scenes, Pope Innocent XI had managed to pull off what many thought was impossible. He forged a coalition. An army of Poles, Germans, and Austrians called the Holy League was marching to save the city. And the most famous of them all? The Polish-Lithuanian forces, led by their king and their elite heavy cavalry, the Winged Hussars. So you've got Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa on the Ottoman side, obsessed with taking the city at any cost. For the Allies, this diverse group of commanders made a really crucial decision. They put one guy in charge of the whole operation, the Polish king John III Sobieski. He was now the supreme commander of a combined force of around 80,000 troops. And that right there brings us full circle. As the relief army appeared on the hills, Kara Mustafa made a fatal mistake.
He was so convinced that Vienna was just hours from collapsing that he refused to lift the siege. Instead, he split his army. He kept his best troops in the trenches to keep attacking the city, and sent only a fraction of his forces to deal with Sobieski's entire coalition. This turned out to be a catastrophic, fatal miscalculation.
After a whole day of brutal back-and-forth fighting, the moment finally arrived. Sobieski gives the signal and unleashes his cavalry. Leading the charge were 3,000 Winged Hussars, these heavily armored lancers who just plunged into the Ottoman lines like a thunderbolt. The impact was absolute. The Ottoman formations, already stretched thin and wavering, caught between the charge from the hills and the defenders from the city, they just shattered. It was a total collapse.
So in the middle of all this chaos, with the Ottoman army in a full-blown retreat, King Sobieski walks into the Grand Vizier's abandoned command tent. He sends a message to the Pope, and it's a play on Julius Caesar's famous words, but he gives the credit elsewhere. He wrote, "We came, we saw, God conquered." What an iconic line for an unbelievable victory.
So, the fallout from this? It was immediate, and it was absolutely massive, completely reshaping the map of Europe. For the Ottoman Empire, this was a complete disaster. It pretty much marked the beginning of their long decline and permanently ended their dream of conquering Central Europe. As for Karl Mustafa, he was executed in disgrace on Christmas Day. For the Holy League, though, it was a stunning victory that kick-started the rise of the Habsburgs. They went on the attack, starting a long war that would push the Ottomans out of Hungary for good. The siege was broken, Vienna was saved, and a whole new era had begun.
And that really leaves us with this huge question to think about, doesn't it? What if that charge had failed? What if Karl Mustafa had managed to take the city just a few hours before? It's one of history's great what-ifs. The world we live in today was shaped, in no small part, by what happened on that single, dramatic day in September 1683.
You know, the Battle of Vienna really was one of those hinge points in history, a day when the fate of a continent hung in the balance. So if you thought this was as fascinating as we do, make sure to follow the Mega Universo channel for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Thanks for joining this explainer.